Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And if you've just joined us, you're tuned into Business Matters with Anwar Mullah and Altaf Muhammad. You can catch us on 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. And just to let you know, we've got Dr. Shaheen Patel joining us this evening, who has been in discussion with us in terms of the current fuel prices and the impact that it actually has on both businesses as well as the end users and consumers down to the home level and the employment level. So just to refresh, Dr. Shaheen Patel, we've analyzed the situation. We've looked at what the impact is across the business in Southern Africa. We've ascertained that this is not just a problem that's unique to our setting in SA, but indeed, it is an issue that the entire globe is facing at the moment, and everyone's rushing into finding means and ways of managing the situation. We have zoomed in locally, and we've measured the impact not just from the fuel prices alone, but enhancing that impact is, of course, what has come through with COVID in the last 2 years, and more especially then in KZN, looking at the floods that has ravaged through our areas, as well as then the recent looting which the country and more especially KZN has faced. So we are aware now of what the problems are. We know where we are, and we know what we are dealing with in terms of the pricing of fuel and how it impacts us. Just as summary, Dr. Patel, what more can businesses actually do to absorb the impact of these increased fuel prices at this point in time?
Yeah, thanks a lot for bringing the conversation so well into focus in terms of a summary based on what we discussed before the news. I think that the gut instinct for many is to feel as though there's nothing I can do. And, hopefully in the next few minutes, we can find some real ways of eye-opening opportunities to showcase how much we actually do have in our control. Let's start with, because fuel is involving vehicles, let's start with vehicles. Because one needs to look no further than that particular problem to see how I can actually start saving a bit of money and absorbing some of the impact of the higher fuel costs, right? So if you think of any small business, medium-sized businesses, they usually have at least a few cars in the fleet, and there are some really, really amazing tools. I think they call them telematics tools.
Yes,
basically what they are, they're these little devices that one could put into the vehicle, and it will track every single thing about the vehicle in the fleet. And what that can do, basically, it can start to give you insight and detail and analysis around driver behavior, around the way acceleration takes place, the way braking takes place, and it can help you to manage costs at that level. So no longer will you need to replace brake pads ever so often because your driver is braking extremely harshly. You can now start to manage that proactively using the technology available.
So,
by the way, the price of the technology has come down quite a bit in recent times.
Right. So just to break in there, a good driver equals cost saving in terms of fuel consumption.
Absolutely, and good data to go along with it. So if you can use data to influence the driver's behavior, it ultimately will lead to a saving of fuel or a saving of costs elsewhere, saving of maintenance costs and so forth. So that's one idea. And again, if you stick to the vehicle in itself, right? I would advise every small business owner to talk to their banker, talk to whoever's managing the relationship in terms of finance, to investigate and find out a bit more about fleet cards. I know for some people they feel it's an outdated concept and term, but I think that I've seen a lot of businesses reverting back to fleet cards as a way of tracking productivity of a vehicle, tracking optimization of a vehicle, and it also gives you a nice set of exception reports. Meaning, if somebody is filling fuel at 3 a.m. and they only work 9 to 5. You already know that there's an issue with that particular driver or that particular vehicle. So you as the business owner or the manager will be able to take some kind of action and save a bit of money. And again, it's not directly linked to the fuel cost, but it's a way of absorbing costs elsewhere in the business and trying not to pass that cost on to the consumer. There's a big issue among several businesses, and I'm sure you'd know this, the issue of siphoning of fuel. There's this phenomenon that's growing in South Africa and elsewhere where staff are basically siphoning fuel out of the tank and sharing it with their buddies and telling the boss, sorry, we're out of fuel. We need to actually go and refuel at the garage. So it's another way that these fleet cards can help you do that. Before I move away from cars in its own right as a way of saving money, for those businesses that operate diesel vehicles, go and investigate and find out more about diesel rebates. Diesel rebates either at your fuel station or through your banker, you will find you can save an incredible amount of money just getting to grips with the idea of what a diesel rebate is and how you can benefit out of it in terms of just filling up at certain garages. I'm going to move away from cars in its own right as a way of responding to the fuel crisis. And I want to talk a little bit about reward systems. So reward systems are another way of really and truly, it's not really an income for the business, nor is it really a cost saving directly, but it's somewhere in between. There's money involved in reward systems. And so I would suggest strongly to every business owner to go and find out how to optimize every single rewards program that is on offer for businesses. In years gone by, reward systems were restricted mainly to consumers, to people, to just individuals. But things have changed a lot. And there's a lot of banks, there's a lot of other organizations that offers really, really attractive rewards. And if you take the time to find out how to capitalize and maximize those reward systems, you'll actually find that there's a lot of cost saving / income, whatever you want to call it, and it will help you to absorb some of the impact of a high fuel price or some other variable that might have changed in your business operating environment. The next one is still within rewards, is also thinking about your customer. What rewards are you offering to your customer as a means of loyalty within your own ecosystem and fostering a relationship with your customer that will keep them coming back? So it's part of this broader discussion around rewards, but it's certainly a viable, easily implementable way of reacting to something like a fuel price increase, right? By the way, please feel free to just jump in at any point because I've got a whole list of ideas that I've jotted down for myself that I thought might be useful to discuss.
No, absolutely. But essence, please go ahead and let us hear those ideas because that in actual fact is the crux of the show. We'd like to find out what can we actually do in order to reduce the impact. Go ahead, please.
Thanks. Yeah. So in the short term, you can think of things in the short term and a bit of a more longer term approach. So in the short term, understanding that getting rid of staff is not the right way to go about reacting to any spike of a fuel increase or any other variable that
it should actually be the last resort in actual fact.
It absolutely should be. It absolutely should be, right? But perhaps you could look at your staff costing slightly differently. Maybe there's an opportunity in certain industries and in certain business types to offer staff flexi time or, let's call them variable time, where you don't necessarily lay off staff, but you can renegotiate terms of employment.
So just on that note, in terms of staff, would sort of reverting to what we now know as working from home. For some of the staff members, would that actually assist? Because, of course, they're going to then use less fuel commuting to work, and that'll be less of a demand on the consumer, on the end user.
Exactly. And what that can do as well, you as the business owner can save costs on real estate. So if you've got people working in your building and you ask them to start working from home, you could renegotiate your lease with your landlord if you are the landlord. So you could then save money there. And again, it's another means of absorbing cost into your business and not passing it on to the consumer. So absolutely, working from home is another option. And again, to your point, it helps the actual staff prevent, it shelters them from having to pay for fuel commuting to work every day. So absolutely, point well taken. Another big aspect, another big opportunity for businesses to absorb costs is just to plan ahead. Almost factor in that fuel is going to be increasing again. It might not be next month or the following month, but certainly there'll be another 1, 2, or 3 or more price hikes within the year. And factor that into your planning, both from a financial point of view as well as non-financial. Start to understand what it means, like I say, for a staff complement discussion. What does it mean for a real estate discussion? What does it mean for your customers? What does it mean for your operating hours? What does it mean in the entire ecosystem of your business? And that planning ahead is crucial. It will save you money. It's very hard to quantify exactly how much, but you will be able to quantify it retrospectively looking back at a period of time, perhaps a quarter or a year, and quantify exactly what your cost saving would have been.
Yeah, we've touched on this point that there is potentially more fuel price hikes. Looking to the future for this year. By any chance, would you know what the potential increases would be like from a financial perspective at this point in time? Maybe we can just share.
Yeah, it's very hard to say, to be quite frank, and it's also not my direct area of expertise. So I'd be loath to try and take a bit of a shot in the dark. But based on discussions that I've had with some people who are in the industry, they do see a potential for further increases. But to what magnitude and size, I wouldn't be able to answer. But certainly, I think that the outlook in general does suggest further increases within the year.
Okay, so we understand that there's definitely going to be some increases, but we don't know what that would be. And that brings us back to the point that you brought just now in terms of planning. So plan for these potential increases. And if you may just continue on that.
Yeah. So part of your planning, right? I mean, if you look at any business, when anything changes in the business and it results in higher costs, we mentioned people, usually the knee-jerk reaction is to sort of lay off staff. Another area of the business that often feels the brunt of it is marketing. So we're going to spend less on marketing because, it's not a direct cost that we should be incurring. But that is actually a very short-sighted approach for many businesses. In certain businesses, yes, I do acknowledge it would be appropriate to perhaps relook at your marketing spend. But I'm not suggesting in any way cutting expenses in the marketing budget. But what I am suggesting is relooking at it and taking full advantage of some of the opportunities in marketing in today, especially with collaborating in other businesses and with other industries. So what that has is the benefit of sharing in the marketing cost for, let's say, as an example, a TV advert, if that still happens. I know it does, but I'm just saying that tongue-in-cheek. And if you were to collaborate effectively where strategies align and where values of organizations align, and basically the same target market is being looked at, between two different organizations in different industries, that marketing spend could be saved a little bit of money. In fact, quite a bit of money.
So it's an
emerging trend that we've noticed amongst marketing professionals is to use collaboration not just on a social media context, but certainly beyond that in the above the line and below the line marketing spend.
Yeah. So we need to be thinking collaboration. We need to be thinking sharing of ideas between businesses. We need to think of networking. And, you brought the point of social media marketing. And I think if used correctly, it could be quite powerful and not a very, very expensive way of marketing, especially for the newcomers in the business arena. Are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, social media is, again, we touch on so many things which merit a discussion in their own right, but social media is another one where the potential to really and truly get massive bang for your buck, just purely because of the size of the community that one is trying to reach on an online setting. It really has such potential and power to revolutionize the way business gets done, especially some of the businesses that have been in operation for several years and even decades are finding it a little bit difficult to make best use of social media and digital marketing. And so, it might sound counterintuitive to engage the services of a social media strategist, but it might actually save you quite a lot of money. And it brings me very nicely into the next point that I wanted to make around what is known as the shared economy. So the shared economy means a lot of things to a lot of people, but in this particular context, it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to share my resources with another. Not just the marketing example that we just had now, Let's take a more practical example. Let's say I've got a little business and I've got, 2 or 3 utility vans or bakkies, as we call them in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
And I don't have any deliveries going out at the moment. For the afternoon, all my deliveries that were done in the morning. In the afternoon, my bakkies are just sitting outside, and it's losing money in the parking lot. What I could do is I could go to one of the businesses on the next block and say, guys, I've got 3 bakkies available for use this afternoon. Instead of going and investing on your own one, why don't you just use mine for the afternoon? I'll charge you X amount of money. And it becomes another revenue stream for a small business. So we finally moved away from the actual fuel price increase. We are talking about something completely different, which has very little to do with the fuel price increase at all. And yet we are reacting to the fuel price increase. And so to the point that I made earlier, where I said a lot of people feel as though there's nothing I can do, hopefully we're starting to see that actually there's a lot you can do. If we let go of certain things that we hold so familiar to ourselves, like ego, a lot of business people are plagued with the problem of ego. It's my vehicle. I'm not going to let my competitor, not even a competitor, just somebody who has nothing to do with my business, he shouldn't drive my car because it belongs to me. Well, you could have made a bit of money if you actually thought a bit
differently. Cut your nose to spite your face situation there.
Exactly.
But yeah, exactly. As you've correctly pointed out, we could go into detailed discussion, and there's so many points that we've picked up that warrants, a program or a session of its own. And you've also touched on psychological effects in terms of this entire fuel price, in terms of the domino effect, etc. And very quickly, just to sum it up, there are some global ideas that maybe you would be aware of that would be useful to the SA business fraternity in responding to the fuel price. Perhaps you'd like to just share in the last 2 or 3 minutes before we actually wrap up.
Yeah, certainly. So I've come across some really interesting ideas of how to react to fuel price hikes across the globe. One of which is on a high level. I think there's parts of the world, including the UAE, perhaps the UK as well, where they are piloting the idea of a 4-day work week. So you're not paying your staff any less, but you're just having a 4-day work week. And apparently you become more productive and you'll still have more output than you would have on a normal 5-day work week. So that's one idea. It's a global trend that seems to be taking a bit of shape and might be worth considering depending on your realities of your business. In Europe, there's an idea of planting, or not even planting, but just placing a bit of greenery in unventilated offices. So what they're doing is they're saying that, you know what, if fuel is going up, oil is going up, we're going to place a few plants in our staff members' offices, and what that does is it has up to 20% of pollution gets removed because of those plants in the offices. And that results in a whole lot of extra productivity, which can now sort of mitigate against the effect of a price hike of fuel, and we don't have to really, it's more resources within the business. So it's another example. There's another one that I found very interesting. It's an organization, I think they're based out of the US, and they call themselves Ecopia. Ecopia is a series of solar-powered robots. These robots, the job of the robot is to clean solar panels. So it's solar using solar, right? And why are they doing that? They're cleaning solar panels because a clean solar panel is going to absorb more solar energy from the sun than a dirty one would. And so now all of a sudden you're just basically becoming more efficient at using solar, and you also have the added benefit of the robot being powered by solar and contributing to that energy mix as well. So without going into too many more examples around what's going on across the globe, hopefully there's some ideas or some creative juices that would start to flow locally in South Africa now, and we can start to respond to challenges like the fuel hike crisis and others that are to come in other areas of the economy. And hopefully it will safeguard us from the loss of jobs, from further, knock-on effects and multiplier effects on the price of food and other commodities as well, Altaf.
Okay, so very interesting there, Dr. Patel. You've brought in that greening the economy could also mean saving a lot of money in the long run, and where we spend on fuel, we could be saving on another end, and that actually helps us to make more profits as well in the long run. So I think it's been a very, very interesting discussion. We've come through a long way. We've looked at how the impact comes into our local lives, and we've looked at some interesting examples. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show, but we certainly do hope that we would tie up with you in future shows to look at other ways in which businesses could improve and manage in Southern Africa. So thank you very much, Dr. Shaheen Patel. We really appreciate your input on Al Ansar Business Matters this evening.
Dr. Shaheen Patel, it's Anwar Mullah again. I've been sitting here very quietly, put Altaf in the deep end this evening, so to say, and I must say he's done a sterling job. But thanks you once again for joining us. I know it's not your first time on Radio Al Ansar, but it's always a pleasure to have you on. And we all, hope and pray that the war in Ukraine comes to some sort of a solution so that the oil prices drop. And if the oil prices drop, inshallah, we should see the benefit coming through at the pumps for ourselves as well. So I know we're not kind of in control of our own destiny in terms of the oil prices as a country at the moment. There's various factors which you've alluded to, but we hope that there's some relief, if not in the near future, but certainly before the end of the year, due to oil prices dropping, and that will take a lot of negotiating and I suppose some level heads around the world for that to happen. But thank you very much once again, and we look forward to having you back with us at some time in the future.
Shukran, I really appreciate your kind words and the opportunity to speak to you and your listeners and to share some of the insights that I have on this particular issue. And I really and truly would be more than happy to join you in future iterations of the show to discuss other issues. My closing comment would just be to any business owner or any individual that is impacted by this particular crisis is to remain strong and positive, and inshallah, with the mercy of Allah, this will just be something that just needs to pass through and we can return to some form of normality.
Ameen. Ameen.
Ameen.
Okay, Altaf, thanks for sitting in tonight, doing a sterling job behind the mic. Inshallah, I think I can hand over to you quite comfortably now. In fact, I may not be around for the next few weeks, hoping to do a trip to the UK soon, just waiting for some visas to come through. So if that comes through, I may not even be here next week. But I'm leaving the listeners in your capable hands, and inshallah all will go well. Yeah.
Ameen.
With that is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.